All right. What up, YouTube? Doing a little voiceover league again. This Jeskai Underworld Breach is a deck that I've really wanted to kind of pick up and give a shot to in the last few weeks, and finally decided to run through a league with it. First league ever playing the deck. So I have not watched any videos of the deck. I've not read any articles of the deck. Just pick up and play, and all I've got to go off of is the experience of playing against the deck some. But basically, I wanted to play an Emery deck back when Oko and Mox Opal and all that stuff was legal, and I never got around to it. So this is my my retribution, my going back and giving Emery a shot when I didn't get to before, seeing how the card plays out, because to me, Emery is one of the coolest design cards to come out in the last few years. It's not broken. It's very fair, summoning sick, comes in, has to stick around, incremental value. And the fact is you just get to cheat it out with artifacts and stuff. So this is probably the best Emery deck at the moment. I figured I'd give it a shot, see what happens. So the core of the deck, for anybody who hasn't seen this yet, is you're a blue-red based mid-range artifact value deck. So you've got cards like Ragavan, Ledger Shredder, Emery as your threats. Emery more of a value piece than a real threat, but Ragavan and Ledger Shredder to help filter your hand, help to gain mana advantage with Ragavan. Ragavan and Emery turn on Mox Amber, as well as Teferi, but mostly Ragavan and Emery. And then you've got these interactive and draw pieces with Unholy Heat, Lightning Bolt, Expressive Iteration, your Urza Sagas. But then you can finish the game with this Grinding Station Underworld Breach 0 mana artifact combo. So if you haven't gotten to play against this deck before, the way the combo works is if you've got a Grinding Station out and a Mox Amber or Mishra's Bauble either in play or in your graveyard, and you cast an Underworld Breach, then you can, if you've got one of these free artifacts on the battlefield, you can sack it to Grinding Station, mills 3 cards, exile those 3 cards to replay your 0 mana artifact with Underworld Breach, untaps Grinding Station, sack it again, mill 3 cards, and you can repeat that to either mill yourself out or mill your opponent out. If you mill yourself out, then you have the option to eventually get enough cards in your yard to Thassa's Oracle and just win the game on the spot with that. If you mill your opponent out, then you don't need the Thassa's Oracle. You just get to put them down to 0 cards in library, pass the turn, let them die on their next draw step. But essentially gives you this Splinter Twin-esque combo of, hey, I'm probably going to see one of these artifacts between the 7 that I naturally play, the 4 Urza Sagas that can all tutor 1 up, and all I've got to do is find this Underworld Breach Grinding Station combo. The Grinding Station can be used to sack off artifacts early, sack off constructs, whatever, to help find one of these in the graveyard. You just need to be able to get to the Underworld Breach aspect. And then if you do end up in a matchup where the combo is not going to be that impactful against heavy grave hate or against somebody that's got a lot of interaction for the combo, then you are just a Ragavan, Ledger Shredder, Urza Saga deck, and you can grind out the game through creating constructs, getting more sagas, Teferi and Emery, accruing value, just replaying Mishra's Baubles and Aether Spell Bombs and whatnot. So your backup plan is pretty significant if the combo doesn't come to fruition. In the sideboard, we've got 2 copies of Prismatic Ending, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Aether Gust, 2 Spell Pierce, 1 more Teferi Time Reveler, 2 Engineered Explosives, a Soul Guide Lantern, a Shadow Spear, a Pithing Needle, and a Wear and Tear. So things like Prismatic Ending, Wear and Tear, really good for answering opposing hate pieces. from like Rest in Peace to Unlicensed Hearse, any of the artifact-based exile effects like Tormod's Crypt, Relic of Progenitus, whatnot. So you can get rid of those and then try to combo off afterwards if that's your game plan. Mystical Dispute and Spell Pierce for like the counter spell matchups, Murktide, stuff like that. Couple Aether Gust, really good against like Scam. One Teferi Time Reveler, good for protecting your combo. So if your opponent can't interact on your turn, you can go off pretty freely. 2 EEs, great to be able to loop with Emery. Adding the third color lets you EE on up to 3. And then Shadow Spear, Soul Guide, Pithing Needle, all really good Urza Saga targets in their respective matchups, whether it be like Tron or Burn or what's it called? Living In, something like that. So yeah, that's the general idea of the deck. Some of the things I was trying to work out before the league started was how much of what resources do I need to really go off, and trying to figure out like, all right, I need 6 mana total to Grinding Station, Underworld Breach, Thassa's Oracle in 1 turn. But once you get like Grinding Station, Underworld Breach going, you can pretty easily find, if you have like an Imri or Ragavan, you can pretty easily find Mox Amber to start getting your mana going. So if you've got Mox Ambers or Mox Amber in your yard and like a Ragavan in play, you can keep replaying the Mox Amber, eventually find Springleaf Drum, play it off the red that you floated on the Mox Amber, tap Ragavan and Mox Amber to cast Imri, and then Imri with Mox Amber will eventually let you get to Thassa's Oracle. So stuff like that can come up. Or you make a bunch of blue and then Springleaf Drum with Imri, and you can cast Teferi, make sure your opponent can't interact. Stuff like that. It's a little bit slower, but it does give you an extra layer of protection once you're going later. So let's just go ahead and jump into the matches, or jump into the voiceover of the matches. Again, this is starting off like completely blind. I have no idea what to expect. Start right there. I've not played the deck. I've not watched content on the deck. Let's move our screen over a little bit. A little too far. All right, so match number 1. Lose the die roll. Opening hand, I'm guessing it's okay. Like, we've got a combo piece. We've got our free artifact. So if we find Underworld Breach, then we can mill someone out. I've got an early interaction and a lightning bolt, an expressive iteration to help dig a little deeper. So I'm going to keep. Opponent mulls to 6, starts off with a breeding pool, which I have no idea what untapped breeding pool with no companion is going to tell me. And there we go. We have Living End. So I'm going to go ahead and cycle this Bauble. I could try to hold it for Emery. But at the end of the day, like, I want to be able to find, I've got a main deck. What is it? No, I don't have a main deck Spell Bomb. I've just got, or I do have a main deck Spell Bomb. I don't have Aether Spell Bomb, not Nihil Spell Bomb. But my best bet is just going to be to like find combo. So I'm just going to start aggressively digging, because at the end of the day, like, if I don't find combo, I'm not winning this game 1. Go for a dashed Ragavan, and our opponent does have a Sky Turtle here. So kind of shuts down that plan pretty quickly. And now if they go for a living end right here, that's going to put a pretty good clock on us. So I'm mathing it out of my head. We're at 20 life. Opponents hit me with the Architects of Will, but I do have the Expressive Iteration to like kind of power through it. But right now they've got 5, 11, 14 power on board. If they have a Violent Outburst, it's up to 18. So I'm not dead next turn, but I'm not in a great spot either. And then they Subtlety my Ragavan, which is pretty rough because I was hoping to get these Mox Ambers online. But now I just need to Expressive Iteration, get these dead cards off the top of my library because we know that they Architects me. So I'm just like trying to find Underworld Breach to have a chance. Because right now, if I draw Underworld Breach, I've got Ragavan, Amber, Maker Red, second Amber, Maker Red. I can cast Grinding Station off like the 2 red that I made, cast Underworld Breach off the Spire Bluff and the Otawara, and then sack the Mox Amber and go off from there. So that's the hope, is that I just like rip Underworld Breach. And this is like one of the things that a lot of shadow decks that we play don't really have access to. Like you have Battle Rage, which can win if you've got a good threat on board. But if you don't, sucks. So we do end up finding Underworld Breach. Unfortunately, we don't have enough mana here. Like we can sack this. Just this point, I'm just trying to see like what I could potentially accomplish, but like making sure that I know the ins and outs of the deck. I might as well play it out. Like my opponent knows what I'm playing now that I've cast Grinding Station, which could have been a reason to not go or try to go off there. But again, it's me like never having played the deck before. Give it a shot, just see what happens. Maybe I'm missing something. So sideboarding. I cut the Bolt and the Unholy Heats, decided to go like full on combo. Brought in the second Teferi, the 2 Spell Pierces, the 2 Mystical Disputes. Cut Aether Spellbomb. So Teferi, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Dispute, Soul Guide Lantern is what I brought in. Opening hand, Ledger Shredder, Bauble, Emery. It's like a good hand if I just find like a hate piece. And I figure I've got Ledger Shredder plus a Bauble. I've got Expressive Iteration. Like, I've got a reasonable chance of finding a hate piece because I did bring in a good number of them. And even if I don't find a hate piece, this is like a lot of digging for combo, which I kept all of that in. Then we find Teferi, which is going to be like lights out as long as they don't have Force of Negation. So I decided to bin that Saga there. I probably could have been the Emery and been just as happy, but I'm not playing the Saga next turn because I want to jam this Teferi. So I kind of figured if I lose the Saga, it's not the end of the world if I have the Teferi down. And if they do end up like Force Negationing the Teferi, then I'm kind of dead anyway. Like, Saga is not going to be nearly fast enough to keep up. So let's see if you resolve. And it does. So that's going to it's going to do a world of good to keep us alive. Now they're just going with main phase endurance, which, I mean, they have to. Bounce the endurance back, just start casting some of our spells. Find an Underworld Breach. So I think my reasoning, I played the land because I wasn't planning on casting the expressive iteration. I was planning on just like casting the Emery, or not the Emery, the Ledger Shredder, and like holding up Mystical Dispute for a 4-drop. But then I kind of decided, all right, I'd rather have the expressive iteration go off this turn. So I cast it first after I'd played my land, because if I did hit like another Ledger Shredder or something, I could play it. Or if I hit a Bauble or a Mox Amber, I could play out the Emery. So it was like a little bit of missequencing there. I should have thought longer about what I was planning on doing that turn. But either way, we know that our opponent, at least for the last turn, has just sat on this sorcery speed endurance. So I feel like as long as I get Ledger Shredders down and kind of get those reasonable, then my opponent's going to have a difficult time killing me from there. All right. So now I've got 2 of my combo pieces. This Urza Saga can tutor up the last combo piece I need, the Bauble or the Mox Amber. Or, I mean, Ledger Shredder can just draw into it. And I thought about playing out the Mox Amber and the Soul Guide. Probably could have. I don't think it matters too much with like the 3rd creature in hand. Like, even if they have Brazen Borrower to bounce to Fairy Living End, then I'm still just like going to my turn, and as long as I dodge Force of Negation, we've got lethal. Let's float a mana, get a Springleaf Drum just in case we need the extra mana there somewhere. So we float our mana, sack the drum, just to start getting our loop going. And I figure it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna just like skip this because all that's happening is my opponent's making me click it out. But all we're doing is floating a mana off Mox Amber, sacking it to Grinding Station, milling ourselves to eventually hit Thassa's Oracle. And I can just Thassa's Oracle back from the yard to win the game once I have no cards in my library. In this matchup, it doesn't matter if I mill myself or mill them, but there's always that random chance that your opponent's playing like an Emrakul or something, and you have to just spend a bunch of extra time clicking. So now I know I've got the win if I just target myself and hit Thassa's Oracle. So I just go with that route. So let's go to game 3. I was actually surprised with how many opponents made me click it out. Like, it's not crazy. If you're playing a combo deck online, then I get it. This deck is pretty quick to click everything out, so it's not too bad once you get a hang of where you need to be clicking when. So the opening 7 had Teferi, but Teferi by itself on the draw is more than likely too slow. This 6 has got the Soul Guide, Saga, Underworld Breach. Like, all I need to do is find a grinding station. Find a grinding station and hope that my opponent doesn't have a Force of Negation here for my Soul Guide. They do not. Let's knock out a piece. No foundation breaker. Emery's a really good pickup because now if they don't hit me on the living end, then I can just like start looping Soul Guide Lantern. So, yep, Violent Outburst. I could sack the Soul Guide Lantern to exile the Street Wraith, but I kind of feel like this is just them trying to get Soul Guide Lantern off of the board. And I can race a Street Wraith pretty well. So I'm just going to let it go. And if they did end up like trying to cycle another Street Wraith or something before it resolves, then I could always pop the Soul Guide then. But the Street Wraith being like a 6-turn clock means I don't think I'm in a huge rush to deal with it. Get down to Otawara. Just plan on like making a construct here. If they had like a foundation breaker here for the saga, that could have been a little annoying, but I still would have had like a construct out as a blocker. So for the most part, it's fine. But we get to make another construct, go get Springleaf Drum, so I can just go ahead and play the Emery and like loop Soul Guide or loop Bobble or whatever if I need to. And we just have like a reasonable clock. So opponent's got to do something. And if they do cast another Living End, then I'm just getting back like Emery, Ledger Shredder, Ragavan. All of which are completely okay with me to get back. But if they're cycling a bunch like this, then I have to assume they do not currently have another Living End. Or they're trying to make the next one like pretty good. But they don't have the mana right now to like Brazen Borrower or Foundation Breaker plus Living End. So I'm just going to like put them down to 1 life and say go. And this is kind of what I was talking about with the backup plan of this deck. You've got the combo element, but then if the combo element doesn't go off, you just have reasonable cards. Let's nuke your graveyard. If they did decide to like get a Street Wraith or something, that'd be fine. Well, I guess they couldn't at 1 life. But either way, I get back some good threats. Still have Underworld Breach. If at any point I flip over like a Grinding Station to Emery or ditch it to Shredder, I can just replay it, have combo. But that's match number 1. All right, match number 2. We win the die roll. Good start for us. Opening hand. Saga's our only land. Bell Bomb, bunch of 2-mana cards. So I think we're going to ship this back. Second, looks a lot better. Emery's not getting a discount, but we've got Saga to go get Bobble or Mox Amber. Got Iteration, got Underworld Breach. We're on the play, so I think we're going to keep this, just ship back this 3rd land. And this is kind of the situation where, like, I don't know if I should be playing Saga on turn 1 just to, like, try to get that tutor up sooner, or if I should be playing it on turn 2 to, like, more often than not, just to try to get constructs. Like, if my hand was really combo oriented, if I had Breach and Grinding Station, then I'd probably play Saga on 1. But since I don't, and I don't know how long it's going to be till I can get those online, kind of want to wait. Well, there's combo. Then decided to just jam out Grinding Station here to get it under a counter spell. Dash Ragavan is fine. Then we're just gonna pass here, plan on making a construct. If our opponent wants to spend a removal spell on the construct, that's fine. Main deck Blood Moon. So luckily we've got the island. We're just going to sack this construct, see if we can find like a little more interaction. We've got the Underworld Breach, so we can always like get back whatever we do end up milling over that we might need. But we just want to like find lands. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is not on my radar. Seems like that's been a card that all of my opponents have been playing against me recently. Saw Tron play Fable yesterday. All right. So here we Underworld Breach because we know that this is going to be able to make an extra land. But we can just start looping. And we'll just like fast forward through this because pretty boring, but same thing I said last round. We just like float mana as soon as we find a Mox Amber, keep sacking it to Grinding Station, replaying it, and all we're doing is making sure we don't exile the Thassa's Oracle. I have seen some lists talk about, or some people talk about playing Grape Shot instead of Thassa's Oracle is your win condition. So once you start getting up to like these middle storm counts or whatever, then you can just like play a red source, Grape Shot them, play a Springleaf Drum, use Emery for mana, Grape Shot them, or replay a Ragavan and then loop Mox Amber and Grape Shot them, whatever. But it would let you play Giganta in the sideboard. I mean, seems fine. I don't think there's too big of a difference either way. Like, if the only difference is getting to play Giganta, then maybe it's worth it. But I also like the fact that Thassa's Oracle just dodges like any sort of life gain or something like that. Weather the Storm. Opening hand, no red mana. So I think we're going to have to ship that back. This hand's a lot better. We've got interaction for like an early Ragavan. We've got Teferi, which is one of the better cards in the deck. So we're just going to throw back Spellbomb because I can always tutor it up off Urza's Saga. Opponent starts with a Leyline of the Void, which is fine. We can bounce that with Teferi when we get to that point. Decided to just throw Spell Pierce, or throw Mox Amber down, because if they want to like Spell Pierce that, sure, get another card out of hand. So let's get Saga going. all I'm really doing here is seeing if they play something that I want to mystical dispute, which I will absolutely mystical dispute. Or no, I don't mystical dispute the Express Federation. That's right, because I didn't want them to like play a land and hold up Spell Pierce for Teferi. So I decided to just let them have the Express Federation, because if they found a threat after it, a Ragavan or a Dragon's Rage Channeler, then I could Unholy Heat. And just like untap with a free and clear board. Get rid of the ley line. So now that I'm close to combo, like if they want to dash in a Ragavan, kill the Teferi, that's okay. Or like that, that's fine. Make a construct. So now that we've got Underworld Breach, I forgot to talk about sideboarding. I boarded out some Ragavans against like all the interaction. Boarded out a Ledger Shredder, which I think I bring back in on the play. But on the draw, I was thinking it might be a little bit slow when I'm wanting to focus on like Sagas and Teferis and stuff. And I think those are the only... boarded out one Emery because of like Unholy Heat, Lightning Bolt, all that. And then boarded in the 2 Spell Pierces, the 2 Mystical Disputes, the other Teferi, and 1 Prismatic Ending. So I'd have an extra answer to like Unlicensed Hearse and stuff like that. Which if my opponent's playing Leyline to the Void, I have to assume they're not playing Unlicensed Hearse. But you never know. People are weird. Alright, so they end up dress downing my Emery and mystical disputing, and I say cool. Like, really, we're just looking for a grinding station. Or grinding station, Saga, Expressive Iteration, anything like that. And this might have been kind of rushed. I decided to just like spell bomb this channeler into turn to slow the clock down. But I think I should have just saved that. I didn't really need to like bounce that channeler right here. Like if that's the only pressure they're putting on me, then I could probably just save for Murktide, since at the moment, if they do have a Murktide, they can pay for Mystical Dispute. So like I'm not stopping the Murktide from coming down. And as such, there's the Murktide. I could Mystical Dispute just to try to like get them to tap out. But then this is just Breach to try to get back Spell Bomb and Spell Bomb the Murktide. Dispute a counterspell. And I think I end up going for the Emery first, because if it hits, then I can spell bomb off the Mox Amber, and then just like replay the other Mox Amber and spell bomb the Murktide. But I've got an Emery on board, but they end up having a second counterspell, so it doesn't really matter. So let's go to game number 3. And like I said, I boarded back in the Ledger Shredder, the 4th Shredder on the play, boarded out second Emery instead, boarded out a second Underworld Breach because we saw Leyline of the Void, and just boarded back in some Ragavans. And boarded out a Grinding Station, a Mox Amber, since I was cutting like heavy on Underworld Breach. reasonable opening hand, just like Ledger Shredder, Bobble, Expressive Iteration. Again, kind of showcasing the backup plan for the deck. Like, hey, when combo doesn't work, we're just a Ledger Shredder iteration sort of deck. Ditch a land here, because if they had a lightning bolt, they would respond to the connive trigger. So I'm thinking they're just not going to be able to kill Ledger Shredder right away. See it dress down on their side, so I know I don't want to dash this monkey if they don't do anything. Could keep the monkey, but since I know I'm going to be playing Teferi this turn, like, I think I can ship the monkey and just go. Same thing with that monkey. Then decide to hold back Ledger Shredder to protect Teferi from a dashed Ragavan. And this is like really, really showcasing the backup plan for this deck. Like, hey, I'm just going to play a bunch of Shredders and iterations, and we'll see what happens. So many Shredder triggers. Nothing really that I need. So I've done Holy Heat a Shredder. That's fine. I got to back up to Fairy. So they're tapped out, so I'm just going to go ahead and Unholy Heat. They do get a Connive trigger, but I'd rather just like get this Ledger Shredder off the board. Now I've got a Construct, so I'm not afraid of dashed Ragavan. Sorry, Emery. I love you, but I think that the Teferis and Iteration are more important right now. Decided to abrade the Mox Amber, which is, I feel like you're better off just holding the Mox Amber than abrading, or holding the abrade than hitting a Mox Amber. But whatever. Expressive Iteration. I decided that this game is like not going to be won or lost with combo anymore, since I've got Constructs, Ledger Shredder, Teferi, Dispute, like Spellbomb, another Saga. So I'm just gonna like keep hitting land drops, holding up things like Dispute, and not worry about the combo. So they find a second copy of Dress Down, or is this the first one? This might be the first one this game. I think they had one last game. But they're going to give Teferi a little love tap. Like, I think they should have, or they couldn't dress out on my turn, but like maybe they wanted to wait until second main phase. Just see if I did anything. It was like just losing the dress down into turn when I have the known Saga is kind of rough. But this is also showing where I think holding on to a Braid would have been better. Like instead of hitting the Mox Amber, they could have like taken out a Construct or something. But oh well. We're just going to keep chugging along. They Odawara my Teferi, which is A-okay with me. Card out of hand for a Teferi. Didn't really care about. He is a reasonable magic card. So we'll start with the other Teferi. So if they got anything they want to cast, they have to do it now. Second copy of Dress Down. We will Mystical Dispute that, 'cause they surely can't tap off of this EE. So then end up deciding to ditch that expressive iteration, because I think Urza Saga second Teferi is going to be like plenty against them. Get to kill off my Ledger Shredders, but I kill off the Ragavan, and now I've just got like Teferi backup Urza Saga. Still have this Aether Spell Bomb around, so I'm not afraid of like a big Murktide or... Did not have Fury on my radar. But end up bobbling myself, see another bobble, decided to just shuffle that away. All right, so we find this Underworld Breach, which just means it's game over. I started to look at like, oh, I can combo off here because I've got the Underworld Breach. I can just like Mox Amber, Emery, loop Mox Amber, Emery, essentially, and I'll eventually find like a grinding station, one of the ones left in the deck, and combo off from there. Until I just realized that like my opponent can't interact on my turn with Teferi, and I've just got a lightning bolt on top. So after thinking of like, oh, let me get a threat and start Mox Ambering. No, we're just gonna like lightning bolt you twice. I just like didn't recognize there was a lightning bolt, but either way, that was game 3. On to match number 3, currently 2-0. Lose the die roll. Opening hand, pretty sketch. Urza Saga, Mox Amber that I can't make mana off of. So I should mulligan, but I don't. And the reason I didn't was if I see the blue source, then I just get to turn 1 Emery, and that just like has deep sentimental value and need for me. Like, I need to cast a turn 1 Emery. I want to do it so badly, and the greed took hold. So I decided to keep, and I was like, yeah, I'm on the draw. I'll totally rip the blue source. Oh. Of course, it's a Thoughtseize deck. They end up taking the bobble, so now even if I do hit a blue source, I can't turn 1 Emery. But if I find another land, I could be okay. This is where we find out we're up against Scam. Which, just Blood Crypt Thoughtseize, I don't think tips that off, but obviously Fury Undying Malice does. Okay. So, we've got combo. Our opponent's pretty low on cards. We don't care about a Kroxa. Alright, so we're taking 8, going to 12. We can take another hit. Decide to get a Springleaf Drum here so that I can play out Emery and have the mana off the drum and the Mox Amber. So I need to think if I could have just killed right here. So if I play Underworld Breach instead of Grinding Station, I can float 1, replay this Mox Amber, float another, and then use Grinding Station to go off there. So yeah, I could have won if I just cast the Underworld Breach instead of Grinding Station. Double check just to make sure. I cast the Breach. I've got the Mox Amber still open. I float a red, cast the Mox Amber from the yard, exile 3, tap that Mox Amber, cast Grinding Station. Grinding Station sacks the Mox Amber, mill 3, recast, untap. So yeah, could have gone off with that. So I gave an unnecessary turn here because I just was not familiar with my lines or my outs. I should have recognized when I hit that other Mox Amber, because it had to be another free mana source. But I should have recognized when I hit that I could just go off there. But again, inexperience with the deck. And I do enjoy that this can't really, it can be interacted with creature removal, but only in the sense that like they can kill my Emry. In response, I could float a blue, recast the Emry, and do everything again. It's like once you have combo with a couple extra mana sources, then like the creature interaction just goes out the window. But either way, we're gonna loop through. I probably need to be better about, if I have combo, just mill my opponent, especially in game 1, so I can know like what their deck list looks like. Because I don't think there's going to be a lot of times, if any, that our opponents have something in their deck that prevents the loop from milling them out. But I just kind of like the I win button. And maybe in paper it would be something like, hey, I'm going to mill myself out, and then I'm going to mill you out, and then I'm going to put Thassa's Oracle on the stack. Something like that. But either way, snuck out that win off that horrible, horrible keep. Here is more reasonable hand. We've got an interaction piece for a scam dude, a scammed grief. If they Undying Malice or something, a Fury, I can't interact with it, but we're also just kind of hoping they don't have a turn 1 scam. Sideboarding. Let's do that. Brought in, took out 2 of the 4 Unholy Heats. It doesn't hit an Undying Malice or whatever on a Grief or a Fury, unless I have Revolt, which I'm not going to have very quickly, so kind of shaving on those. Poured out a couple Ledger Shredders to try to slim down, bring in the extra Teferi because it bounces any sort of scam guy. And then the other board ends were obviously Spell Pierce, 2 Spell Pierce, Soul Guide Lantern, Teferi. Looking back over this, Aether Gust probably would have been fine. Like, gets Fury off the board. If that is scammed, gets like Kroxa escaped, can get rid of that. Seasoned Pyromancer. So yeah, should have brought in Aether Gust. I was just thinking more about like, oh, my big issue is the black side, them like scamming a Grief on turn 1. So I should have just like focused on that. Or not been so focused on that. Should have been more on like, oh, well, what kills me? Fury, Spyro value, whatnot. So here's a Spring Leaf and a Ragavan. Hold up Spell Pierce in case they have like a Blood Moon. And like, I thought about blocking and just like trading off and relying on Saga plus Iteration and whatnot. And if they had like an Undying effect, I could block, they cast it, I'd Spell Pierce off that. But I ended up deciding to take this hit. So of course they hit a removal spell off of it. So I'm just going to fire off this Spell Pierce, like make them tap out. So go for the Grinding Station so I can cast out the Emery. Now I can get Mox Amber off the Urza Saga. All my Underworld Breaches are still in, so once I've got setup done, all I've got to do is find a breach and I win. So we're pretty okay blocking here. Decided to just like scare them a little bit, but EE with 2 is okay. It's like once I find an Underworld Breach, then the EE doesn't really matter. So we can use Ledger Shredder to cast our Iteration here. All right, so now we get to Emery again. I love how well this deck functions on like 2 or 3 lands. So they EE, it's fine. Again, I get greedy and I'm like, I'm not going to chump block because this Emery is going to get some value. But obviously at this point, I think it's a little bit different. Like Emery value is real. Plus if I top deck a breach, which ends up like being the case more often than I thought it would be. Like, oh, if I just top deck a breach, I just win. All right, well, Teferi, get Aether Spellbomb down. So I had to cast the Bauble. Like, they usually don't play a lot of bolt effects. They could Kroxa, but I can, I guess I can't do anything against Kroxa. So I'll be dead to that. And rip another Unholy Heat. So my 2 Unholy Heats in the deck both got stripped away with their Ragavans. Then find the breach off the Spell Bomb. Unfortunately, don't think it's enough to win because I don't have another Mox Amber in the graveyard. If I had another Amber, then I could cast Underworld Breach off of my lands, cast Ragavan off the Mox Amber, and try to like loop Mox Ambers to get some mana going, eventually tap Ragavan for Springleaf to get back Emery. But obviously we're going to try. So we got to make a blue, cast Emery, and if Emery flips over a Mox Amber, we win. Does not. So let's double check to make sure there wasn't something else I could do. I don't believe I could, but never hurts to double check. Like, I had to do something this turn or I'd die. maybe that's not true. Maybe I could have just cast Ragavan, and if they didn't have anything, like cast Ragavan, cast Grinding Station. If they've got nothing, then I block their Ragavan. I had Spell Bomb too. So in hindsight, I think we could have won this. I think in hindsight, I go Ragavan, Spell Bomb, pass, or Ragavan, Spell Bomb, Grinding Station, pass. And I've got Ragavan Springleaf Drum open in case I need to bounce something. Best case scenario would be they just attack with everything. Ragavan blocks their Ragavan. I take 3, go to 1. They don't have a follow-up. I untap, draw Underworld Breach, and I can go off very easily from there. I just have cast Underworld Breach, Grinding Station, sacks Mox Amber, recast Ragavan, recast Mox Amber, Ragavan taps for blue off drum, cast Emery, now Mox Amber taps for blue, sack it, rinse, wash, repeat. That's if they have nothing. It also beats like Thoughtseize, Grief, whatever. If I had thought about not having a Mox Amber, would I have not gone for it? Maybe. But at this point, I was kind of thinking, like, I'm super dead if I don't go off this turn. But maybe I just wasn't. Between, like, Ragavan blocking and the Aether Spell Bomb to bounce something, I think I could have fairly reliably gotten one more draw step. And then I could have cracked Aether Spell Bomb on my next turn to see one more card. So yeah, I think I shouldn't have gone for it there. But that's why we're learning the deck. We've still got game 3. Don't think I really changed up much for sideboarding. I brought back in one Unholy Heat so I could interact with the turn 1 Scam Grief, and then brought out a Teferi because I wanted to be a little more combo oriented on the play instead of reactive. Opening hand is okay. It's not great, but I really don't want to mulligan aggressively against Scam. So we'll play out Bauble, Scalding Tarn. I'm not planning on cracking this Bauble unless they go for like turn 1 Scam Grief, in which case I'm going to need to find some more action pretty quickly anyway. So that's why I'm just like holding up this Bauble so I can turn 2, get this Emery down. Flips over double Mox Amber. So like I would like to recast one of those Mox Ambers and get my mana going. So I'm going to take this hit off Ragavan. I was going to say, if they decide to just cast the Ledger Shredder, that's really good for me. But I don't want my Bauble exiled, so I'm just going to go ahead and sack it and manage to find Unholy Heat, which is huge there. Recast Mox Amber for the mana. I couldn't cast the Expressive Iteration without fetching, and I wouldn't have had that. I would have only been able to play one more thing off my island. And oh boy, their Ragavan hits my Mox Amber, which means now they have Grief mana if they want it. But instead decide to Necromentia, which names Underworld Breach. So now combo is off the table. But even if combo's off the table, like, I do have just reasonable Imri loops because they're not answering my Imri. Got the zombie token, iterations, blah, blah, blah. We've got a lot of stuff to do. Here, I'm just, like, aggressively looking for an Urza's Saga. But, I mean, we'll take an Unholy Heat on a Ragavan. And then start getting Bobble back, get extra draws. Another one of those spots where, like, if my opponent dashes a Ragavan to kill Teferi, sure. Magus to the Moon, I don't care about. I've got the Unholy Heat if I decide I want to kill it. But I've also got my basic island, so I'm not, like, under a lot of pressure to kill it. But because I found Ragavan and I want to dash through and don't want to trade off, I decided to just go ahead and take it out. So there's a Soul Guide to stop a scam. Got Imri looping Bobble now. Hearse is fine. Like, this is definitely a case of our opponent going all in on, like, stopping combo and not respecting just, like, the base game plan. Or the backup. I don't even know. I guess I would consider this more of, like, a blue-red Urza Saga deck that happens to have a combo finish. I wouldn't consider it a blue-red combo deck that happens to have a mid-range backup plan. But we're going to turn on secret Imri activation, or secret Imri mode of just, like, attacking. Go ahead and iteration. So we're just going to play out this grinding station. It does basically nothing here, unless I just want to sack it and, like, get some more artifacts in the yard for Imri. But I've already got Bobble. And if he exiles it, like, I can't. I would have to main phase crack grinding station after he's already exiled this, but he's only exiling Bobble after I've tapped Imri to target it. So Imri's basically dead. Grinding station doesn't do anything. I don't know if he was just scooping to this because was sick of it, but the grinding station was not doing anything relevant there. All right, 3-0 going into match number 4. Win a die roll. Pretty good hand. We've got the turn 1 Imri that I've been, like, all high and mighty about doing today, so I can't throw that back. And then we've got Underworld Breach. All we got to do is maybe find, like, a grinding station off an Imri flip, or we've got Bobble look. So let's do the thing. And I can't wait to have one of these hands of, like, turn 1 Ragavan, Mox Amber, Springleaf Drum, Imri or something like that, or Ragavan, Mox Amber, Bobble, Springleaf Drum, Imri. Like, we're gonna feel so rewarded if I get one of those. Then opponent plays a main deck Relic of Progenitus on turn 1. So now Underworld Breach is pretty well off the table. But we're at least... It's funny because we do hit the grinding station off the Imri. So, like, we were set up for a turn 3 kill here if our opponent didn't have a Relic of Progenitus. So all we can really do is like see if maybe they tap out on turn 2 or tap off of Relic. But nope, they've got a Inquisition on 2. So now Breach is gone. And my game plan quickly becomes find Urza's Saga. Got it. And I think I should have tapped the Emery first just to try to see if I can get him to like pop this Relic before I do anything. Before I like dash Ragavan, whatever. But ultimately, I don't think it's like a big deal either way. Thoughtseize takes Ragavan. But at least now we've got this Urza Saga working. Play the second Emery to try to flip over like a Bauble or something that I can get back with the first Emery. And then Grinding Station away. What did I flip over there? Sack something. Whatever. Again, just like trying to find artifacts that I can use. And then I was absolutely going to sack away that construct just to try to get more draws. But didn't work out that way. There's another construct. We get a Mishra's Bauble, so now we can start looping that with Emery. I just feel like the only way I'm winning is if I find combo. Maybe I should have gone more all in on construct beats. But usually this mono black deck is like pretty good at just dealing with threats. So between like Invoke Despair and Speak of the Devil, a lot of their other pieces, like not a huge chance of just getting by with constructs. All right, so finding more grinding stations isn't doing anything for us. I could have just cast the Thassa's Oracle there to try to find a breach. I probably should have. It's like I could Unholy Heat the Thassa's Oracle later to get it back in the graveyard. But then they have Karn. Karn immediately for Tormod's Crypt. And now combo is about as close to off the table as you can get. But just trying to fight through like main deck Relic plus a Karn getting a Tormod's Crypt is probably too much to overcome. And then, of course, taking up the second Karn's really rough. Even if I find like an Unholy Heat, they can Tormod's Crypt take me off Delirium. Let's get that out so I don't have to keep swapping it every time a target's lying in the yard. And they end up getting Sundering Titan off Karn. So that's going to take out the Steam Vents and the Hollowed Fountain. So I decided to just scoop it up there. Little unfortunate that we only saw one breach in the top 35. So I feel like if we saw another one up before that Karn got crypt, we could have had a chance. And like if we do cast an Underworld Breach here, If we were able to get the Karn off the board and we cast an Underworld Breach, then maybe there was a shot. We found like Red Source, cast Breach, cast Unholy Heat. They respond with Crypt. We respond with another Unholy Heat. Like maybe we could find a line to get out from there. But for the most part, opponent just had like too much hate. Turn 1 Pierce, turn 2 Urza Saga, turn 3 Construct, Teferi Emery, something like that. So we'll roll with this. We can spell Pierce a turn 1 Relic or Thoughtseize or something. And decide to get down the grinding station early to protect it from hand hate. I don't believe their deck has got many ways of getting like an artifact off the board. I think this turn it would have been better to play the Emery than sit on the Saga. I think I would have had more luck getting Emery, hold up Spell Pierce. Like the odds of my opponent not doing anything in these turns is fairly low. And I think if I had Emery out to maybe find some additional value, it would have ended up getting me farther. Then decide to Pithing Needle the Maze or the Karn. In hindsight, Pithing Needle the Maze Mine Tome would have been a lot more impactful. Because if they did play a Karn here, I could Emery back the Spell Bomb, make the Construct a 4/4. But opponent's just going to start necromenting away stuff. Iteration pretty solid. Mystical, I didn't talk about sideboarding. Mystical Disputes just in is like a bad mana leak option. Maybe I can counter like a Karn or Invoke Despair or something like that. I took out all of the spot removal, a couple of Underworld Breaches and a Grinding Station, because once you see like main deck Relic and then they're Karning for Tormod's Crypt, combo's pretty well off the table. Brought in the 2 Mystical Disputes, the 2 Spell Pierces, and the 2 Prismatic Endings to try to hit things like Maze Mine Tome or Expedition Map on turn 1. Brought in the 2nd Teferi because it's a little grindier of a matchup. Brought in the Pithing Needle. And I believe that's everything. Yeah. So just trying to play a little bit more of a value game. Which I'm not sure if that's right. Like, if this Teferi and Mystical Dispute had just been an Underworld Breach and a Grinding Station, then we could have just gotten a Mishra's Bauble or something off of the Urza Saga and just gone off. So it might be the case that like playing around Grave Hate is playing around Grave Hate isn't as good as just playing the combo. And they're going to end up getting a lot of value off of this Maze Mine Tome. So again, I think I should have just Pithing Needled Maze Mine Tome and said like, I'm going to have to counter a Karn. And no, I was not streaming this, so opponent couldn't be stream sniping and playing around Mystical Dispute. But it might be worth it to play like a single copy of Wish, just to be able to grab stuff that like your opponent's exiled off like Necromentia or whatever. Or Relic or whatever. All right, so we're pretty well out of this one, especially now that they've got double Cabal coffers. Like Mystical Dispute's never countering anything. So I'm pretty sure we just like scoop it up pretty quickly. Yeah, third Necromentia. Hits Ledger Shredder. So now our only win conditions are like 2 more Ragavans, Urza's Saga. There is one of our monkeys. Decide since the Karn can't activate, I'd rather just have the Ragavan in play. Like hitting it for 2 doesn't do anything. If Thoughtseize and push. Can't crack these baubles. I did have a bauble down when Karn hit the board that I should have sacked. But here we are. 4th copy of Necromentia. And they named my one of Thassa's Oracle. I guess since we are down to like 17 cards, there's not an unreasonable chance that I just like naturally draw my deck and get Thassa's Oracle. If grinding stations were active, I could have. If I drew the Oracle. You don't want to just like mill because you got like a 75% chance of milling over Thassa's Oracle, because every 4 cards that you see, 3 of them are going to be flipped over with a grinding station. So that seemed like a horrendous matchup. Just so much grave hate. Grave hate and hate for everything we're trying to accomplish in Karn. So either way, but we are 3-1. Match number 5. We win the die roll. Opening hand has got Saga, Bauble, Spellbomb. Against a Yorion deck. I think we end up keeping this just because I've got like Saga, Spellbomb, redraw off Bauble. Mainly Saga. And you're about to see some absolute shenanigans. So I decided to get down the Saga so I can start getting constructs. Coiling Oracle is fine. I'm going to bobble them into turn and see a main deck Spreading Seas. So last round, we got main deck Relic of Progenitus on turn 1. This round, we've got main deck Spreading Seas. So I know this Saga is not long for this world. So we're just going to start like building our board instead of going in on this construct. Yep, so Spreading Seas takes out Saga. All right. Backup Saga is not bad. If this is just like a Bant ephemerate deck, which is kind of the impression I get with Coiling Oracle, then bouncing their stuff isn't going to do any good. So I'm just going to bounce mine and try to find like an Emery. And they Ewit to get back Spreading Seas. All right. And again, like, I have no idea what I was thinking here, because I could have played Steam Vents, Underworld Breach, and started going off with those. I've got the Bauble, I've got the Emperor, and I just kill them. But for whatever reason, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to play around something. These Spreading Seas had me shook. Like, I get major punish there for not just going for the kill. But that one was absolutely a punt on my part. Like, bad punt. But like I said, I was just not in the right headspace after that Underworld, or after the Spreading Seas. For whatever reason, I was thinking like, oh, I'm going to end up needing to win with constructs. Which we're doing a reasonable job of presenting a good board state, but decided to double block that construct, so we're just gonna Unholy Heat here. Get some dudes off the board. Thankfully, they don't have an Ephemerate there. So I have both an Ice Fang Quaddle and a Solitude. So Solitude is going to be able to trade off 2 constructs, gain a little life. And Cryptic Command. So yeah, we punted away heavily by not just going for it on turn 4 or whatever. I think I was afraid of like Force of Negation, but I should have realized like, okay, my opponent's playing Spreading Seas, Coiling Oracle, Eternal Witness. Like, there's no chance they have Force of Negation. But once it gets like this point, we're not beating blink value. Decided to just bolt to see if they'll, for whatever reason, counter it. So maybe we were able to find like Expressive Iteration into combo. So there's a Grinding Station. More draw spells. Ephemerate, draw a million cards. Plus Soul Herder. It's kind of a like this has Aspiring Spike written all over it. But it's just kind of funny to see a deck that is nothing but draw spell creatures and counter spells. Like Solitude's not a draw spell creature, but Eternal Witness essentially is. Coiling Oracle, Yorion, Soul Herder essentially is, since you can just exile like a Coiling Oracle or something. And then just like, yeah, Counterspell, Archmage's Charm, Cryptic Command, Spreading Seas. It's kind of a weird concept. I mean, it's like the essence of the 4-color pile decks too, but I don't know. I just don't know why you would play like this version when you could play the 4-color version. But either way, scoop that one. So that one was like a loss with an asterisk. Like, we could have won if I hadn't have been emotional and realized that I could kill with the Underworld Breach. So here we've got turn 1 Ragavan, which of course they've got Prismatic Ending for. You see E-Witness on the top of their library, so let's just get some stuff down. No Spreading Seas for my Saga is good. Ah, yes. Modern staple, Night of Autumn. So let's go to combat. See if they decide to block for whatever reason. I don't think that 1 point of damage is going to matter. So I'd rather just like sit here and hold up mana. They get back Prismatic Ending, decide to Ephemerate the Night. So now we're in pretty rough shape. They can Ephemerate the Ewit, get back Ephemerate. Got Solitude. It's like we're dead here, as much as I don't want to say it. Like, opponent can aggressively trade off with everything, then get back whatever they want with Ewit and Ephemerate. So but yeah, these like value blink decks are an Aspiring Spike special. Was playing this deck a lot when Uro was around. This is just like a value breach. Try to pick up a few cards. Try to Aether, Ewit gets back Night, so I can just try to Aether Gust the Night, get an Urza Saga activation. Like, maybe I can find something that helps me get out, but nope. Nope, nope, nope. So end up that league 3-2. The mono black match, I don't think I had any chance of winning. But that blink deck at the end, I could have won game 1, or I had game 1-1 and just like mind blank. So maybe we would have had a better shot if we got to go to a third game, especially third game on the play, or third game on the draw. Yeah. So just going to game 3, we would have had a better chance. In retrospect, the deck felt really good. I think I should have just started with like a blue-red build, just as many like 4-ofs as you can play to get used to how the deck functions, and then start adding in the splash. Because like I didn't know when I wanted to bring in Prismatic Ending. I didn't know what I should be doing with Teferi a lot of the times. I didn't know if I should more aggressively bring in Engineered Explosives, since I can make it for 3 colors instead of 2. So I think the next league I'm going to play like a straight blue-red build and try to find room for things like Fury or Dragon's Rage Chandler, something like that, just to try to get a little more consistency on the combo so that I can know better what I should be trying to accomplish or what my game should be playing out like. The deck, however, is very, very strong, very fun. It's really easy to click through the combo when your opponents make you do it. So that was a big factor. It's not like one of these Walking Ballista decks where you got to Devoted Druid click 75,000 times to get 100 damage. And Thassa's Oracle being like a 1-card win condition is extremely nice. I am going to try out one of the Grape Shot builds at some time or at some point, just to see what that's all about. But I think if you go with like a blue-red version, this is kind of what I was messing around with. Adding like Spyros and Metallic Rebukes, Spreading Seeds of Our Own, Fury, stuff like that. So we have a much more like mid-range capable game plan going into game 2 or 3 if we expect a lot of grave hate. Cut down on an Emery, move Shadow Spear to the main. Like it could end up being better to just like have Shadow Spear on the board, keep the 4th Emery, because Emery was really solid. But I think I'm going to try out something like this next. The argument that was given for the Thassa's Oracle for Grape Shot just to get the free Giganta could be nice. But ultimately, like, I don't think you're bad against Blood Moons regardless. So I think Giganta just, like, isn't really adding that much. Could just be a reasonable beater, but between, like, Ledger Shredder, Ragavan, if you choose to play Dragon's Rage Channeler, then I think you kind of have the beat stick route kind of covered. But either way, that's first video with Breach. I'm going to try to play this deck a little bit more on stream. I think it's got a lot of potential. I like the play patterns to it. And I hope y'all are willing to journey along with me as we kind of figure out this deck. So if you haven't yet, feel free to hop into a live stream over at twitch.tv/the_control freak, spelled just like here on YouTube. And we're usually live like Monday through Friday, 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock-ish Central Time. So if you want to come say hey, feel free to do that. If not, hope you enjoy the YouTube content, and I'll catch y'all next time. Adios for now.